For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the morning of May 12, 2004, 34-year-old Paige Lopez left her rental cabin near Everglades National Park, Florida. She planned to photograph the vibrant birdlife within the remote mangrove channels. She never returned. Despite an extensive search involving airboats, helicopters, and dive teams, Paige vanished without a trace. For 20 agonizing years, her family lived with the crushing weight of uncertainty, fearing the worst. Then, in the spring of 2024, a chance discovery by another kayaker deep within the mangroves brought a shocking new clue to light. This is the story of what happened to Paige Lopez in the unforgiving wilderness of the Everglades. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. Paige Lopez lived and breathed the Everglades. A freelance wildlife photographer, she found solace and inspiration in the sprawling wetlands, its labyrinthine waterways, and the vibrant ecosystem it cradled. Her photographs, often featuring rare birds in flight or the subtle play of light on sawgrass, captured the untamed beauty of the region. Paige, at 34, was known for her adventurous spirit, her willingness to venture deep into the park's remote corners, seeking the perfect shot. On a warm May morning in 2004, she embarked on what she envisioned as a routine kayaking trip. Her goal was to photograph the roseate spoonbills nesting in the mangrove islands of the park's western edge, a notoriously isolated area accessible only by boat. Meticulous as always, Paige packed her camera gear, a GPS device, and provisions for the day. She rented a bright yellow kayak from a local outfitter, a familiar ritual, and signed the logbook, noting her planned route and estimated return time. The morning air hung heavy with humidity as she pushed off from the launch, the rhythmic splash of her paddle the only sound breaking the stillness. The deeper she paddled into the mangrove tunnels, the more enveloped she became by the wilderness. Sunlight dappled through the dense canopy, casting an ethereal glow on the still water. Days later, the same yellow kayak was found adrift, empty. Paige's belongings were undisturbed, her camera bag still zipped, her GPS indicating her last known location deep within the mangrove channels. The discovery triggered an immediate and extensive search. Park rangers, aided by volunteers and helicopters, combed the area, their efforts hampered by the dense vegetation and the intricate network of waterways. Alligators, a constant presence in the Everglades, were immediately suspected. The fear that Paige had become a victim of these apex predators gripped the community. Her family and friends, initially hopeful, grew increasingly distraught. Interviews with those closest to Paige painted a picture of a vibrant, experienced outdoorswoman, not prone to recklessness. Her brother, Victor Gomez, recalled her meticulous planning and deep respect for the Everglades. Friends described her as cautious and well-prepared, making the idea of a simple accident seem unlikely. The initial police investigation focused on the kayak itself. Forensic specialists examined the vessel for signs of an alligator attack, searching for tooth marks or scratches. While some minor damage was noted, nothing conclusive pointed to an animal encounter. The lack of clear evidence only deepened the mystery surrounding Paige's disappearance. The vastness and complexity of the Everglades presented a formidable challenge to investigators. The search area, encompassing thousands of square miles of interconnected waterways and dense vegetation, made the task of finding any trace of Paige daunting. The search for Paige Lopez intensified in the days following the discovery of her empty kayak. Airboats skimmed across the sawgrass prairies, their powerful engines roaring as they navigated the shallow waters. Divers plunged into the murky depths of the mangrove channels, their visibility limited by the tannin-stained water. Search dogs, trained to detect human scent, were deployed along the shorelines and in the dense vegetation. Despite the extensive efforts, the search yielded no results. The sheer scale of the Everglades hampered the operation. The vast network of waterways, the dense mangrove forests, and the ever-present threat of alligators made the search a logistical nightmare. As days turned into weeks, the hope of finding Paige alive dwindled. The recovered kayak became the focal point of the forensic investigation. Experts meticulously examined the vessel, searching for any clue that might explain Paige's disappearance. They analyzed the hull for scratches, dents, or any signs of an alligator attack. Microscopic analysis was conducted to identify any trace evidence, such as hair, fibers, or blood. The results were inconclusive. While some minor scratches were found, they were deemed consistent with normal wear and tear. No definitive evidence of an alligator attack was discovered. The absence of clear physical evidence added another layer of complexity to the investigation. Park rangers, seasoned veterans of the Everglades, were baffled. They acknowledged the inherent dangers of the park, particularly the presence of alligators, but Paige's disappearance defied easy explanation. Her experience in the area, her meticulous planning, and the lack of any signs of a struggle suggested something more than a simple accident. Investigators began to consider the possibility of foul play, although the lack of any concrete evidence made it difficult to pursue this line of inquiry. The case began to attract media attention. Newspapers and television stations across the country reported on the vanishing photographer, highlighting the mystery surrounding her disappearance. Interviews with family and friends painted a picture of a talented and adventurous woman, lost in the wilderness she loved. Speculation about the cause of her disappearance ran rampant, ranging from alligator attacks to accidental drowning. As the weeks passed and the search efforts scaled back, the media coverage gradually faded. The case of Paige Lopez, once a national headline, began to slip from public consciousness, leaving behind a lingering question mark and a family desperate for answers. The disappearance of Paige Lopez cast a long shadow over her family and friends. Victor Gomez, Paige's brother, became the reluctant spokesperson for a family grappling with unimaginable grief. He spoke of Paige's infectious laughter, her unwavering optimism, and her deep love for the Everglades. The family clung to the hope that she would somehow be found, but as time wore on, the hope slowly eroded, replaced by a gnawing uncertainty. Birthdays and holidays became bittersweet reminders of their loss, each passing year deepening the void left by Paige's absence. Friends organized memorial hikes and kayaking trips in her honor, keeping her memory alive in the wilderness she cherished. For them, the Everglades, once a source of shared joy and adventure, now held a haunting reminder of their friend's unsolved disappearance. The official investigation, after exhausting all immediate leads, transitioned from an active search and rescue operation to a cold case. The limited resources of the Park Service, coupled with the vastness of the Everglades and the lack of new evidence, made it impossible to sustain the intensive search efforts. The case file, thick with reports, interviews, and forensic analyses, was archived, a testament to a mystery that had defied explanation. The alligator theory, while initially prominent, gradually lost traction as the investigation progressed. The lack of any physical evidence on the kayak, combined with Paige's experience and cautious nature, led investigators to suspect that other factors might have been at play. However, without any concrete leads, the case remained stalled, a puzzle with missing pieces. Over the next 2 decades, the case occasionally resurfaced in local media, often on anniversaries of Paige's disappearance. Renewed appeals for information were issued, hoping to jog someone's memory or uncover a previously overlooked clue. Several small-scale searches were conducted, based on new tips or advancements in search technology, but none yielded any significant breakthroughs. The family, though resigned to the possibility that they might never know what happened to Paige, never gave up hope. They continued to advocate for the case, reminding the public and law enforcement that Paige's story remained unresolved. The Everglades, once Paige's sanctuary, became a symbol of their unanswered questions, a vast and silent keeper of secrets. 20 years after Paige Lopez vanished into the Everglades, a seemingly insignificant discovery rekindled the dormant investigation and breathed new life into a case long considered cold. In the spring of 2024, a local kayaker, navigating the same remote mangrove channels that Paige had explored 2 decades earlier, made a startling find. While maneuvering his kayak through a particularly narrow passage, his paddle struck a submerged object lodged beneath the tangled roots of a red mangrove. Intrigued, he reached into the murky water and pulled out a battered and weathered kayak paddle. The paddle, encrusted with algae and barnacles, bore the faint but discernible initials PL etched into the handle. A closer inspection revealed something even more disturbing: traces of dried, dark-colored stains that resembled blood. The kayaker, recognizing the potential significance of his discovery, immediately contacted park authorities. The recovered paddle was transported to the Miami-Dade Crime Lab for forensic analysis. Technicians carefully documented the paddle's condition, photographing the etched initials and the suspicious stains. Samples of the dried stains were collected and subjected to DNA testing. The results, when they came back, sent a ripple of shock and renewed hope through the investigation. The DNA profile extracted from the stains matched Paige Lopez's DNA, confirming that the paddle had belonged to her. The discovery of the paddle, bearing Paige's initials and her blood, dramatically shifted the focus of the investigation. The long-held theory that Paige had been the victim of an alligator attack was now seriously questioned. The presence of her blood on the paddle suggested a far more sinister scenario, one involving foul play. For Victor Gomez, Paige's brother, the news was a mixture of relief and renewed anguish. The discovery, while heartbreaking, finally provided a tangible piece of evidence, a concrete link to his missing sister. It reignited the hope that, after 2 decades of uncertainty, the truth about Paige's fate might finally be revealed. The discovery also galvanized law enforcement. The cold case file was reopened, and a new team of investigators, armed with advanced forensic techniques and a fresh perspective, was assigned to the case. The Everglades, once a silent witness to Paige's disappearance, now held a crucial clue, a weathered kayak paddle that promised to break the silence and reveal the long-hidden truth. The scratches on the recovered kayak paddle, barely visible beneath the layers of grime and marine growth, became the focal point of the renewed investigation. Forensic analysts, using advanced microscopic techniques, meticulously examined the markings. The scratches, they determined, were consistent with the damage caused by a rotating propeller. Further analysis revealed traces of paint embedded within the scratches. This paint, a unique blend of colors and chemical composition, became a crucial piece of the puzzle. Investigators began a painstaking process of cross-referencing the paint sample with databases of boat manufacturers and paint suppliers. They also contacted marinas and boat repair shops in the area, seeking any records of boats with similar paint. The search eventually led them to a small, independent boat repair shop on the outskirts of Everglades City. Records showed that a fishing guide named Derek Hayes had recently had his boat's propeller repaired and repainted. The paint used on Hayes's propeller was a perfect match to the paint found on Paige's paddle. Derek Hayes, a man in his late 50s with a weathered face and a reputation for being a solitary figure, became the prime suspect in the investigation. A background check revealed a history of minor offenses, including poaching and illegal fishing within the park boundaries. More alarmingly, intelligence gathered from local informants suggested that Hayes was involved in drug trafficking, using his knowledge of the Everglades' intricate waterways to transport illicit substances. Investigators theorized that Paige, unknowingly, had stumbled upon Hayes's illegal operation during her kayaking trip. This theory provided a possible motive for her disappearance. Surveillance teams were deployed to monitor Hayes's movements. Undercover agents, posing as fishermen and tourists, frequented the areas where Hayes operated, gathering information and observing his interactions with others. Investigators also interviewed individuals who knew Hayes, piecing together a picture of his activities and associates. Financial records were scrutinized, revealing suspicious transactions and unexplained income. The investigation began to uncover a network of individuals involved in Hayes's drug trafficking operation. Phone records and intercepted communications provided further evidence of Hayes's criminal activities and his connection to the area where Paige disappeared. The net around Derek Hayes was tightening. The evidence, though circumstantial, pointed towards his involvement in Paige's disappearance. The investigators, armed with the paint analysis, the witness testimonies, and the growing body of circumstantial evidence, prepared to confront Hayes directly, hoping to finally uncover the truth about what happened to Paige Lopez 20 years earlier. The interrogation room was small, sparsely furnished, and windowless. The air hung heavy with anticipation. Derek Hayes sat across the table from 2 detectives, his hands clasped tightly in front of him, his gaze fixed on the tabletop. The detectives laid out the evidence they had meticulously gathered over the past months. The kayak paddle bearing Paige Lopez's initials and her blood, the microscopic paint analysis linking the scratches on the paddle to Hayes's boat propeller, the witness testimonies placing him in the vicinity of Paige's last known location, and the mounting evidence of his involvement in drug trafficking. Initially, Hayes remained defiant, denying any knowledge of Paige Lopez or her disappearance. He claimed to have been fishing alone on the day she vanished, far from the area where her kayak was found. He dismissed the paint evidence as coincidental, suggesting that his boat propeller could have been damaged in any number of ways. He insisted that he had never seen Paige and had nothing to do with her disappearance. As the interrogation continued, the detectives began to dismantle Hayes's alibi, piece by piece. They presented him with inconsistencies in his story, discrepancies between his account and the evidence they had gathered. They confronted him with the testimonies of witnesses who had seen him in the area on the day Paige disappeared. They revealed the details of their investigation into his drug trafficking operation, exposing the extent of his criminal activities. With each piece of evidence presented, Hayes's composure began to crumble. His denials became less forceful, his gaze more evasive. The weight of the evidence, the relentless questioning, and the realization that his lies were unraveling began to take their toll. Finally, after hours of interrogation, the dam broke. Derek Hayes confessed. In a low, halting voice, Hayes recounted the events of that fateful day in May 2004. He admitted that he had been transporting a shipment of drugs through the mangrove channels when he encountered Paige Lopez kayaking in the area. He claimed that she had startled him, and in a moment of panic, he had struck her with his paddle. The impact, he said, had knocked her unconscious. Fearing the consequences of his actions, and desperate to protect his illegal operation, Hayes had made a chilling decision. He admitted to dumping Paige's body into the dense mangroves, weighting it down to ensure it remained hidden. He then staged the scene to make it appear as though she had been the victim of an alligator attack, hoping to divert suspicion from himself. He also implicated two accomplices who had helped him dispose of Paige's body and cover up the crime. Based on Hayes's confession, a search team was dispatched to the area he had described. After days of painstaking searching, they recovered skeletal remains, later confirmed through DNA analysis to be those of Paige Lopez. The discovery brought a grim sense of closure to Paige's family, finally ending 2 decades of agonizing uncertainty. The recovery of Paige's remains was a somber moment, a stark reminder of the tragic loss and the brutal reality of her fate. It also marked a turning point in the investigation, transforming a cold case into a solvable crime. The confession of Derek Hayes, coupled with the recovery of Paige's remains, provided the crucial evidence needed to bring him and his accomplices to justice. The arrest of Derek Hayes and his 2 accomplices sent shockwaves through the small, tight-knit community of Everglades City. The news that a respected fishing guide, a familiar face in the local marinas, was implicated in a decades-old murder and drug smuggling operation was met with disbelief and outrage. The case quickly garnered national attention, resurrecting the story of Paige Lopez and the mystery that had surrounded her disappearance for 20 years. The trial, held in Miami, was a media spectacle. Prosecutors presented a compelling case, weaving together the forensic evidence, witness testimonies, and Hayes's confession to create a chilling narrative of a crime born of panic and greed. The defense argued that Hayes's confession was coerced and that the evidence was circumstantial, but their arguments failed to sway the jury. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, Derek Hayes was found guilty of second-degree murder and drug trafficking. His accomplices were convicted of accessory after the fact and drug-related charges. Hayes was sentenced to life in prison, while his accomplices received substantial sentences. For Victor Gomez, the verdict brought a complex mix of emotions. Relief that justice had finally been served mingled with a profound sadness of finally knowing the truth about his sister's fate. He spoke publicly about the importance of never giving up hope, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. He expressed gratitude to the investigators who had tirelessly pursued the case, and to the kayaker whose chance discovery had broken the silence surrounding Paige's disappearance. He also spoke of the need to learn from this tragedy, to strengthen the protections for visitors to the Everglades, and to ensure that such a senseless act of violence would never happen again. The case of Paige Lopez had a lasting impact on the management and oversight of Everglades National Park. The investigation exposed vulnerabilities in the park's security, highlighting the challenges of patrolling such a vast and remote wilderness area. In response, park authorities implemented new measures to enhance visitor safety, including increased ranger patrols, improved communication systems, and mandatory registration for solo kayakers venturing into remote areas. The case also prompted a review of regulations governing commercial activities within the park, leading to stricter licensing requirements for fishing guides and increased scrutiny of boat traffic in sensitive areas. The tragic story of Paige Lopez served as a catalyst for change, prompting a renewed focus on protecting both the natural beauty of the Everglades and the safety of those who explore its wild and captivating depths. Her memory became intertwined with the ongoing efforts to preserve and protect this unique ecosystem, a testament to the enduring power of one woman's passion for the wilderness and the unwavering pursuit of justice in her name.